My name's Geneva and I'm an artist. When people think of an artist, I think a lot of times they get this image of kind of a scruffy painter, just kind of a little disheveled and paint on the clothes and, basically, living very, just kind of based on whatever they can scrounge up at the moment. The starving artist is like a big myth that everybody hears. But it's, in my experience, I've met so many people that identify as an artist that kind of, they just fit all roles at the same time. It's not one defined role. It's kind of more of a lifestyle that you fit in with everything else. I've met people who were, academics who paint on the side and sculptors who, also work as accountants and real estate agents and whatnot. So it's just kind of an extra identity that you kind of tag on with your life, I think. To be an artist, I think sales is probably the least of your worries, and probably the last goal that I have. Obviously, it's nice. It feels good when somebody likes one of my pieces enough to take it home, but I'm more focused on telling stories and just finding things that interest me and bringing them to life in a creative manner, whether if it's an image or music or dance or whatnot. I primarily work as a visual artist, so yeah, making images is my forte. That's exactly what I love to do, even though I like exploring all the other ones too. But I think for an artist, sales, some find it very important. I mean, if you're a graphic designer or an illustrator, you have to sell your work in order to make a living. But a real creative person is going to just keep making what they make, just for the feeling of it. I don't know. There's something very primal about creating something from nothing. Taking a burnt match and a little water, you can make a drawing on any piece of scrap paper. You don't even have to have professional tools or whatnot, but just the act of creating something new and sharing an idea or a story, I think is the end goal there. I probably first knew that I was an artist definitely as a little kid. I just wanted to make stuff all the time. So we would, family trips to the beach, I would be more interested in building sandcastles or driftwood forts. If we were on a camping trip, it would be, playing with the branches and weaving them together to make like a basket or sharpening a stick for marshmallows or whatnot. So I just always wanted to make things. I think my mom would get pretty upset with me on a regular basis, just with my drawing stuff and craft items all over my bedroom. So I was kind of a messy kid, but I mean, kids who are having the most fun make the biggest mess. So, but yeah, definitely as a kid, I knew art was, just making things was for me. I did a lot of music lessons. I took ballet for 15 years. So I kind of just, anything creative really had a real hold on my heart right there. I absolutely love to do it. Growing up, it's hard to tell someone like, oh, I want to be an artist, because, as a little kid, everyone's like, well, you need to have a real job. You're not going to be able to survive out there just making pictures. So I focused probably like in elementary school, I decided well, if I still want to make art and I want to share it with everybody, I think being an art teacher would be the best way to go. So I just kept making things and showing my friends how to do little cartoons and doodles and whatnot. And when I got to college, my parents, we made an agreement that they would help pay for school, but I had to spend a year studying engineering before I could decide on what career path I wanted to take. And I did well in math and science and whatnot, and my dad's a civil engineer, so taking over the family business obviously was a dream of his. And I spent my year in engineering, and I didn't find it terribly interesting. And so I went and I switched majors as soon as I could, and I ended up in the art department, and just flourished there. Continued my 4-year degree studying painting and drawing and photography, and went on to get my master's degree. And eventually I was an art teacher for a whole year. I taught digital photography at Merced College for 2 semesters, and the teaching part, it was so much fun. The actual getting up and giving a lecture, it's hard for me because I'm not one who really likes to speak publicly. I like to express things through images. But just sharing my love of image making with other younger students and older students. I had a lot of adults in my class. It was just so much fun. But then you learn that our teachers are really underappreciated and they don't get paid enough. And yeah, going from multiple campuses and just trying to scrounge up enough to make rent was pretty tough. So I went back to work for mom and dad. But I'm lucky enough that I had that safety net of my parents and the family business that I could go back and I could do drafting or accounting or whatever they needed me to do and still pursue my artwork on the side. So for a long time, I did that. I would keep making things and keep having shows in the Central Valley, and eventually got a little burnt out, started not to get accepted into shows that I'd applied to before. And I think a lot of that was because my work was struggling because I was having a hard time finding a community. At that time, I was living in Merced, Merced and Atwater, and the art scene there was really tiny. So I think my work kind of suffered just because I didn't really have anyone to bounce ideas off of. So I wasn't getting into shows I'd previously gotten into. But so yeah, I got burnt out. I got a little defeated, and I took an unintentional break for probably at least 6 or 7 years. But yeah, I had my son in between, and I got to be mom. And as he got older, he would ask me, "Mom, draw this for me. Draw me a dinosaur, draw me a train." And so just picking up the pen and doing a little doodle every once in a while kind of helped spark that interest again. So being a parent, you want to show your kids just everything that they can be. And if I couldn't be what I wanted to be, how was I supposed to show my son how he could be who he wanted to be? So I really decided to dedicate getting back into the arts just to show him that, I'm not just a mom, and, I'm not just, grandpa's accountant, I can do all these other things. So this last year and a half, I dove in headfirst. I signed up for every exhibition I possibly could. I've made a ton of work. I've joined drawing groups and the local arts commission, and now all of our weekends are booked with art activities. But my son loves it, and he gets to go around and he gets to go like, "My mom is an artist, and this is her painting, and she did this mural." And yeah, so he's just so proud of me. And seeing that from his perspective, it just makes me want to make more stuff, share more stories. Having a community as an artist is really what's going to keep you, it's going to keep you grounded, but it's also going to help you learn how to experiment more and become more confident in the work that you create. And just learning from those around you can help you tell better stories through your images or your sculptures or whatever you're making. Not having someone to bounce an idea off of, it'll make you stagnant. You kind of just will get yourself in a rut. And I've seen artists out there where you can tell they just kind of paint the same thing over and over again. And while technically they make wonderful pieces because they are crafting that skill, it really, I don't know, sometimes it just, for me, it seems to lack a heart or a message. And I think in finding other people to share your work with, it's only going to help you grow. It's uncomfortable to share your work a lot of the times. I still get anxiety about taking a picture and, putting my newest painting out there on social media, and, crossing my fingers that like, oh, maybe somebody will like it. But, art's really in the eye of the beholder. It's, you never know what they're going to like, what they're not going to like. But if you have that community out there, they're going to support you no matter what you make. And they're going to help you make it better. And that's where learning from some of the older artists in the areas, not just my professors and teachers in college, but people I've met at local art groups, like the things I'm doing now, the drawings I'm making are just so much better than they were just a year ago. Nailing down proportions and values and whatnot, just those technical skills, but also learning how to tell stories in more abstract ways and let other people identify with my work and share their stories with what they see in the things that I make. Storytelling and art, I think, go hand in hand. I mean, it goes back to cave drawings. Like, really, that's the first things that humans made were there to either tell stories or act out ceremonies or whatnot. So as a little kid, besides just making art, I had a real love for classical mythology. I think I read every Greek, Egyptian, Native American mythology book that my little elementary school library had, every single one of them. And that just kind of, I don't know, we know so much about our culture through art, and so much of those art pieces are about these classical stories that go back to major archetypes and identities and culture and history. And so you can't take story and creativity apart. Those things really have to go together. And a lot of times I think stories really inform just our basic ways of survival. If we think about Aesop's fables or whatnot, and every little story kind of has a message behind it. And I think, using artwork to tell those stories in even a non-literary manner kind of allows for more open interpretation too, which, I don't know, I love open narrative. There's something more powerful about it to me, just because people can put themselves into it and find their own identity in a different way than how you would maybe through a film or through a closed off written story. Artwork, really just sitting down at a drafting table or standing in front of my easel, it has become a major form of meditation. Whenever I start a piece, generally I will just take a canvas or piece of paper and I will smudge stuff all over it just to kind of get rid of that blank whiteness. Sometimes that's intimidating. But as soon as I get started on that process, my mind is super quiet. Like, the thoughts go away and I'm just focused on the medium and what's going on around me. And it's being a mom and an accountant who has to make collection calls and has to, pretty much deal with other people's needs all the time. It's nice just to have that quiet moment where it's just myself and what I need, and just to, kind of meditate on just a piece of paper for a little bit. I think for those who have trouble really saying that they're an artist, it's okay. It's okay to be scared and to, keep your stuff in the closet, but you're going to lose so much of your own self, and, not being able to share that with the people that you love and care about and your community members, they're the ones who are really going to miss out. Art can be scary. It can be extremely personal. I did an entire series repainting old family photographs of myself as a 5-year-old with a twin. I was born an identical twin, and I lost my twin sister like a day after we were born. So being able to use artwork to tell that story and bring that out, is something I would never ever talk about. Or I think I shared it with like my best friends and my husband, and that's about it. But getting it out there was very cathartic. It was scary going into a studio and showing my friends like, okay, I have this piece, and it's two of me, and so they're all saying, "Oh, what does this mean?" And I was like, "Well, this is who I am. I'm a lone twin, and I never really had the chance to grapple with that as a young kid. So putting it out into my artwork, especially specifically when I was in my 20s in graduate school, like I was just able to open up so much more to people. So I think if you have trouble saying you're an artist, it's okay. Your time will come. But being able to be open and share with your community is going to help. It's going to heal you more than just sitting back and missing out on everything. Yeah, I think making the artwork is what fuels the bravery. By making a big image, I can kind of hide behind the canvas. I don't have to, get up and speak in front of people and tell my story that way. It's a different way of communicating that I feel more comfortable with. It's also a way of communicating where I can leave it in a gallery somewhere and have somebody else see it and experience it that way. So yeah, it gives me bravery to tell that part of my story, but I don't know, maybe it is a little cowardly too, hiding behind a big canvas. But at least I'm getting it out there. I think that's one of the fun things about being an artist is you can kind of you can do anything. You can study anything. If I decided one day I was, really into muscle cars in the 1960s, I could go through and look at the, drafted models and go to car shows and whatnot and make 100 paintings, based off of that, or photographs or, sculptures or whatnot. Right now, I'm really interested in figurative work, and specifically I'm working on a series of paintings based off of photographs I find at garage sales and antique stores. A lot of the pictures I've been picking up have been from like the 40s, 50s, and 60s, and having these kind of like little lost treasures, bringing them back to life through creating a painted image. I think, I don't know, it helps to continue on these stories of people who, have gotten lost in a garage sale bin somewhere. So I'm really, I guess I'm interested in people right now. And the open narrative that can be explored through these photographic images. Like, we don't know anything about, any of the people that are there, but just by taking pieces of the background, seeing who's around them, how it's lit and whatnot, and then, I don't know, adding a few elements into it, it creates a whole new story. One of the first things I did when I started teaching at Merced College is I assigned a project where all of my students had to go to an art show. I didn't care where it was. I didn't care what they looked like. I just wanted them to go and just be in a museum or a gallery or a local co-op, just to get comfortable there. And I learned that most of these kids, I think about 20 out of the 30 in each one of my classes, would raise their hands and be, I've never been to an art gallery. I don't know, where do I go? What do I do? I just walk in there and, just encourage them, like, yeah, you just go in there and just take a look. That's what it's there for. So the art world could be very intimidating. Walking into a place where things are, selling for thousands of dollars, and a big white box can be pretty scary. But you learn that the gallery doesn't necessarily represent the artist or the people that create those works. It's much different going into somebody's home garage studio with paint cans everywhere and whatnot versus this whole elite gallery culture. I found that I really love community-involved projects, so that's kind of where I've been focusing my efforts at this point. I've gotten into murals thanks to some local famous muralists in the area, but just touring the Mission District in San Francisco and seeing these just folk art community murals, they're wonderful. They just brighten up the place. They tell a story about the neighborhood and the people that are there. I think those pieces are much more powerful than a Rothko in a big museum, even though I do love Rothko. I think the distinction between being an artist and being artistic is just having the bravery to own it. I've met lots of people who have just incredible stories to tell, great technical ability, but just want to stay home, in their extra bedroom and do their little doodles and not share them with anybody. But it's just all in how you see yourself. I think it takes a lot of confidence to go out there and go to a business luncheon and be like, oh, hey, by the way, I don't just do accounting, I do art too, So I think art really, creating pieces, really, it does have a piece of your soul in there, and that's why it's so hard to put it out there for everybody to see, and could potentially criticize or not like it or tell you, well, my kid could do something that looks just like that. And it's important to find a community where you can put your things and yourself out there, and be accepted with love and generosity and whatnot. So I think that's why a lot of artistic individuals don't say they're an artist, is they just haven't found their community yet. I don't think I started really identifying until probably this last year. Like I have a master's degree in painting. I went to school for 8 years. I've drawn my entire life, and I just had such a hard time saying like, no, I'm an artist. I think it's just because I never really felt brave enough to do the work I really wanted to do. And I really had to push myself. And that's where just signing up for every single opportunity and forcing myself to get out there and show my work and talk about it is what has given me the ability to finally say that I'm an artist. And not just an emerging artist. I feel like I'm an established artist, I know what I'm doing. For the little ones that, they want to be an artist, and it's, intimidating and scary, and, you're afraid your mom or your dad or your grandfather is going to tell you like, well, that's not a real job. There are so many opportunities out there for creative people. You don't necessarily have to be an artist. You could be a clothing designer, you could code, video games, you could do, architectural photography, you can cook, chefs are great artists. If you look at how they plate their dishes and whatnot and play with ingredients, it's the same as playing with different pigments of paint. There's just, and especially being in California, like there is a wealth of opportunity for anyone in the creative industry, just with the film industry here, the design and tech industry over in the Bay Area. Like there's so many opportunities for creative people that I really want the younger generation to tap into that whole creative force. I think there's a lot more value in making things and celebrating it than focusing on some of the destructive things that are happening in our communities and whatnot. So making things it brings people together, and if you want that to be a career, you can find your way.